The kind of pain that sucks the life out of people is chronic pain. And I think chronic pain is more of a recent phenomenon. I think now that we sit so much and we eat poorly and we have lifestyles that are very stressful, a lot of people have pain, which often in the back, the neck, maybe the knees. That kind of pain causes, I would say, neurological changes that are very negative and even psychological changes that just suck the juice out of life. I mean, no matter what I ever had, no matter what car I got, no matter what I achieved in my life, being in pain all the time made it not worth it.
People can't live to their potential because they're dealing with pain, you know, and it really holds people back.
I'm 61 and I have the least pain in my body that I've ever had in the last 30 years. More than 70% of pain that people experience is psychological. You can get completely over something that you would have thought was never going to go away. You can learn to turn it down, like turning down the volume of a sound or of light.
Welcome back to Unlock Potential. I'm David Archibald, and today's guest is Dr. Wade Brackenbury, a pioneer in chiropractic care and someone who's spent decades helping people heal without drugs or surgery. He's my own doctor and my customer and a really good friend. Now, from founding Vietnam's first licensed chiropractic clinic to now focusing on orthopedic inserts and education, Dr. Wade's mission has always been clear: help people move better, feel better, and live better. This conversation is about unlocking potential through healing and rethinking how we treat the body so we can show up as our best selves. Wade, thanks for coming in to talk to me today. I think that you probably have some really good things to share, especially when it comes to people's health and maybe dealing with pain. Now, obviously, you're my customer. You're also my good friend. And I'm really happy that you take the time to come chat with us today.
Thank you.
You bet. Hey, what was the first moment in your life where you remembered feeling like you were healing people?
So when I was 16, I broke my back, and it was a really protracted recovery. I wasn't supposed to get better, but 3 years later, I recovered. And I went through a lot. And during that time, I had acupuncture, chiropractic, and physiotherapy. And when I was in college, I was in my junior year of college, and this girl was being in my dance class, and she was being flipped, and she hit a table. They were practicing at home, and it hurt her back really bad. And for 6 months, she was going to chiropractors and medical doctors. They were thinking about doing surgery. And I realized that I knew how to fix her. I remember I started manipulating her and doing some acupuncture with sewing needles on her, and she completely recovered after everything else had failed. And there was this kind of like sense that I knew how to do it. And I realized it was like maybe something like a calling, you know, and so that was the first time I actually treated somebody. And the first time I treated her, it was effective and she got better. And so that was kind of the first moment.
That's cool. At what point did you think, hey, I need to maybe look at being a chiropractor?
Well, I didn't like chiropractic very much when I was doing my recovery. Most of the chiropractors were quite money oriented. They were more focused on selling me packages of treatment and extracting money, and they were really on me recovering, I felt, to be honest. I was very negative about chiropractic, actually, by the time I got better. But the guy who really got me better was a medical doctor, chiropractor, and acupuncturist. And he was German. Really helped me a lot. And through his influence, I decided to study acupuncture. So I actually studied acupuncture first in Korea and in China. And then it was only when I came back to America after that that I started thinking about becoming a chiropractor, because I would have to go to a acupuncture school in America. And at that time, they were very inferior to what I'd already studied. Or if I did a chiropractic, I could bill under chiropractic. I could treat under chiropractic and legally use my acupuncture in most states in those years.
Okay.
So chiropractic was a secondary choice.
All right. Okay, that makes sense now.
And then when I became a chiropractor, I fell in love with it. But actually, I fell in love with helping people through chiropractic, not in the business of it, which I'm still quite embarrassed about sometimes. You know?
Yeah. Now, you've been in Vietnam for almost 20 years or over 20 years. What's kept you here?
Basically, I like it.
Yeah.
I've lived in Romania, and I've been a year in the Congo. I've lived in many Southeast Asian countries, including Malaysia, Thailand, Hong Kong, Korea. And of all the countries I've lived in, I've felt most at home and liked Vietnam the most. And so I came here, I blocked out 10 years to be here, but very early on, I knew that I would stay, for the long haul unless something went wrong.
Yeah. I usually hear people say, "Oh, I'm planning on staying a year," and then they're here longer, but blocking out 10 years. But that was because you were here to build something,
Yeah.
and
Hard to do something under 10 years.
exactly, yeah. I mean, so that took some foresight for you to be able to do that. That's awesome.
Sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I made the decision in 3 hours.
Well, that's pretty quick.
No, I spent a year preparing to go to China, and I didn't really enjoy the process of starting in China. Didn't love it. And I spoke the language, and I came to look at Vietnam. And within 3 hours of coming to Vietnam, I'd completely changed my plans and decided to move to Vietnam for 3 years. And it was a 10-year commitment either way.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Why do you think, or how do you think physical pain holds people back from becoming, who they really are?
Yeah, so physical pain. I think pain is an incredibly important part of the human experience. And so when we talk about physical pain, we can differentiate by two kinds of pain. The first being the pain that you have when you like sprain your ankle or break your leg, or when you work out really hard and you have to work through pain, or when you have an acute injury. And that kind of pain, it makes the mind sharp. It teaches you to be really careful and to be judicious about what you do. That kind of pain is a positive experience, I think, in the long run. The kind of pain that sucks the life out of people is chronic pain. And I think chronic pain is more of a recent phenomenon. I don't think a lot of people had chronic pain in a more primitive situation, but I think now that we sit so much and we eat poorly and we have lifestyles that are very stressful, I think a lot of people have pain, which often in the back, the neck, maybe the knees, a pain which develops and either becomes worse over time or just never goes away or comes and goes. That kind of pain causes, I would say, neurological changes that are very negative and even psychological changes that just suck the juice out of life.
Yes.
And I remember waking up after being in pain for 2 years and just going, what's the point, I mean, no matter what I ever had, no matter what car I got, no matter what I achieved in my life, being in pain all the time made it not worth it,
Mm-hmm.
And I think compound that with the fact that in our society now, we're very pharmacologically oriented. So we feel like if somebody has a condition, we should manage it through titrations of medicine. And with pain, that always has a gradually increasingly detrimental outcome. When people start to manage with painkillers and anti-inflammatories and gradually opiates, it begins also to affect the spirit of life, to suck the juice out of life, to make life really not worth living.
Yeah, you take medicine to fix one problem, but it starts a whole nother problem. Yeah, it kills your kidneys,
especially long term.
Yeah, for sure. I've been living with a lot of chronic pain for a while.
I know,
and I totally get it. It will eventually, makes you depressed. You can have some depression from that.
And the thing I think to understand is that depression is not only psychological, it's a physiological phenomenon. I mean, your blood chemistry is different when you're depressed, and pain leads to that. And so I think that a lot of people see depression as, snap out of it or whatever, but it's not. It's physical. When people are depressed, they don't have physical pain. Depression is a type of pain. It's very similar to pain. And so when people have physical pain that goes into depression, it's a double whammy.
Yeah, I hear you. Unfortunately, I know exactly what that feels. In fact, I wonder if I could get hypnotized into not recognizing the pain or something.
Yeah, interestingly enough, my own recovery included hypnosis.
Okay.
And in my years in America, I actually used hypnosis quite a lot. I really worked a lot with hypnosis for helping people to overcome pain because, when I had my back injury, I worked with one of the top pain specialists in the world. He came into our rehab center often to do studies. And he said that his findings, and this is still consistent today, that was back in the 70s, more than 70% of pain that people experience is psychological, even if it's like a burn victim. If somebody has a really bad burn, more than 70% of the pain is what the brain perceives as pain. And so, we can learn to we can actually learn to move the pain outside of our body and our mind. We can learn to turn it down, like turning down the volume of sound or of light, depending if you're a visual person or a person who's more auditory. It can help a lot.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like just getting rid of the actual pain.
Well, for sure. Yeah. succeeding to, eliminate it is obviously best. But, I think that, your body just starts to wear out in some spots, and it's just the way it is. Old age
I
at
don't
some
know.
point.
Yeah, maybe. How old are you now? You're 50.
I'm 55.
55.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 61, and I have the least pain in my body that I've ever had in the last 30 years.
Yeah,
I have one little bit of a knee problem right now. I have no pain in my back, no neck pain, no shoulder pain. I don't, like I've got some joints that have been damaged very badly, like my shoulders, my hand, and my wrist, and one knee. And actually, the knee that had the worst damage is completely pain-free right now. So I think a lot of times what we see as far as degenerative changes, especially on films, and what a person actually experiences can be very different. And so we get locked into this thing of like somebody has a problem, we image it, and then we look at these images and say, oh my gosh, you have degenerative joint disease in your knee. And automatically this kind of door comes down. It's like, hunk, I'm done.
Yeah, that's right.
I have to have a knee replacement or I have to have pain. And I quite often will x-ray both joints. When people come in, because Vietnam is so cheap compared to America for imaging, I will do an MRI on both shoulders or both knee joints. Very often the knee that's really killing them, giving them a lot of pain and is no worse looking on film. It might have a torn meniscus that might be exactly the same on the other side. And sometimes the side that has no pain is worse. And so I'm not certain that the wear and tear that happens to the body has to inevitably lead to pain. In fact, I think that it's really not true a lot of the time. And I think a lot of times, at least for myself and some people I work with, you can get completely over something that you would have thought was never going to go away.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's a moment with the patient that reminded you, why you do this work?
Wow.
Helped a lot of people, I know.
Yeah, there's been a few. And I suppose one, I have a number of stories that were really formative for my feeling like I made something good out of my life. One, I was in Thailand, and there was a half Japanese doctor named Dr. Don, martial artist, first chiropractor in Thailand. He was like 6'3", 240 pounds of solid muscle. He was in, a number of kung fu movies. And he had a very volatile life. He had several different women in his life and a marriage and kids all over. And he had a very volatile life. He's very childlike, but a really gifted healer. And sometimes he'd have to go back to America, try to work on his problems back there. And I would come and cover for him. During that time, there was a Norwegian man, and Michael Humbre. He was a wonderful man. And he was in a really bad car accident in Norway and had a whiplash and started developing really bad neck pain, as whiplash people do, and headaches, and was miserable. He'd broken his jaw. And he started to, and his wife was Thai, and she was watching Thai TV, and they did a program on Dr. Don's clinic, and I happened to be there. And he saw that program, and he just says, that's the answer for me. And he jumped on a plane, he came out to Thailand, and I began to work on him. I worked on him with acupuncture and chiropractic, got him involved with a dentist who changed some teeth, and then I think they reset his jaw. But the upside was he got almost completely better after like 10 years of being just like suicidal, And he was so grateful that he would write about me all the time on Facebook, and he'd write to me all the time. And eventually, a few years ago, we went out to Norway and stayed at his house and spent time with him, and it was just really, that was something to have somebody come from clear over across the seas and to get clear over something and go back, that was one of my best experiences.
That's really good. That's awesome.
Sorry.
Many people misunderstand chiropractic care. And if you could re-educate the world on one thing about chiropractic, what would it be?
One thing about chiropractic, well, chiropractic here, the challenges and the misunderstandings about it here are different than what they are in America. In America, chiropractic is what we call alternative healthcare. We were one of a number of professions that was deliberately targeted by the American Medical Association, the AMA. We were shut down. Chiropractors were all put in prison, as were osteopaths. And the osteopaths left America and let their schools become medical schools. The naturopathy disappeared off the face of the earth. And chiropractors fought to keep their profession, and eventually were allowed to, and there was this huge lawsuit called Wilkes versus the AMA. And we won that, and we were allowed to become portal of entry physicians outside the scope of medicine, because we don't believe in medicine. Chiropractors believe medicine has its place. We don't believe that everything has to be under medicine. It's not like a church, right? And so what we have to offer as far as health is a very different approach than the allopathic medical model, which is basically you start to treat with medicines, you titrate, you gradually, people just all are gradually becoming sick, and you're trying to fight that with medicine. We're against that. So I think that that's something that Americans understand. Unfortunately, for my profession in America, many chiropractors go into chiropractic because it's good money and it's not as hard to get into as medicine, which is a terrible reason to do anything.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of people who are not very good at it and are very good and are focused on the billing process to make money out of it.
Mhm.
And I hate that. I suffered greatly with my own back problems. I went to 2 chiropractors who were just charlatans.
Yeah.
And the medical doctors, I would say, were better. They were more ethical in a certain sense. They just didn't have the answer for me. But I think chiropractors who are actually, they love it enough that it gives up its secrets to them. They get really good at it. They really help people on a very deep level when that's a problem that can be helped with chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
In Vietnam, the thing that people don't understand is that as soon as I came to Southeast Asia, we always come up with this thing that other people see this like American guy call himself a chiropractor and making all this money or doing really well and being very successful. And they say, well, I'm a Chinese medical doctor and I crack bones, so I'm also a chiropractor. And we even have a group of people here that have what they call the DC Gonstead Association. They teach Gonstead chiropractic. They're not chiropractors. They bring in physiotherapists and disenfranchised doctors to teach it. And inevitably they have injuries. Inevitably they kill people. And so there's been a number of companies that have opened up with almost the same name as the one I started that have put in fake doctors. And so I fought it for almost 20 years. I quit fighting it now because I've sold my company. It's not my fight anymore. I'm letting the other ones fight it if they will. But that's the main up. A chiropractic is a portal of entry physician who's gone to school for 8 years, not a somebody's done a
Correct.
yeah.
I mean, you've worked at it for a long time. Now, you brought American Chiropractic Clinic to Vietnam as your own company, and you grew it, and now you've kind of let it go. Right? So, how is that for your, what's going through your mind when you go, okay, well, it's time to move on?
Well, I was very lucky because the deal was we were approached to buy the company. We didn't look to sell the company. It was a good offer, and I think it was a very more than fair offer. We got a good buyout. Then COVID hit, and it was very messy, but we got through that. Besides feeling extremely fortunate that I sold my company before COVID kind of made things hard for everybody, I think that was very fortunate. That was my first thought was, oh my gosh, I'm fortunate for that. And at that time, I felt like I can continue to work if I want to. I can always do what I want to. Beyond that, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope these people don't screw this up. It was investment bankers, and I wasn't very impressed with their understanding of healthcare, honestly. So I was very worried that they would not, take care of the mission of what we do. They would look at it as just a spreadsheet. How can I make more money out of this? And I believe in healthcare, if you really go the extra mile, take care of people, it does well. But if you just look at it like a way of a transactional type of a company, it'll always struggle. And investment bankers, unfortunately, are very transactional. They don't understand the spirit of things very well. So that was my big worry.
Well, I've watched you directly, and I know that you're actually working by your heart, not by a P&L statement. So I could see how that could be.
Yeah, I'm dyslexic. I can't even read a P&L statement. And when our company at its highest time was doing very well, and one of my business partners, it was Mun, who and he's runs billions of dollars with companies, and he would meet once a month for a board meeting, and they would put up all these spreadsheets and stuff. And I would just sit there because I couldn't even read them. I just go, okay, it sounds like we're doing good. Okay. And they kind of break it down into simple English, but I know nothing about business, very little. And I probably never will,
Well, you've got a lot of things going on in your life, and I can see that you brought in the right people to help you, and I think that's one of the things that good business leaders do is they hire the people to do that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so you don't have to. Now you had a lot of people working for you directly.
About 200 at one point.
Yeah, you had not only patients, but you have to lead staff. What's one of the leadership principle that you felt that you really relied on in your leadership of people?
So in Vietnam and most of Southeast Asia, there are a few things, but one thing very much in particular, and I see it also in Harley Davidson and the companies that you run, people are either 130% for you, or they're just kind of going through the motions. There's not a lot of in between. Now, I've had a lot of Chinese employees over the years. Obviously, I've had countries where most of my employees were Chinese. And Chinese, they'll give you a pretty good hard day's work if you treat them well. And if you treat them badly, they'll give you a little bit less, but not much. And if they quit, they'll give you a good notice because they don't want to have a bad reputation. They're very moderate and even and danger adverse. Vietnamese are very, if they're not happy, they just quit. Doesn't matter they don't have a paycheck coming. They don't have any money coming in or they don't have any savings. They just quit, go find out what to do, And so I think the thing that I learned with Vietnamese was relationship is incredibly important. And leading by example, like for example, in a chiropractic clinic or a medical clinic, you need really good customer service. And you can train and talk about it at meetings all day long, but the only way to really do it is to sit down, have a meeting, train the hard skills or the soft skills, and then go out there with them and lead it. Walk out there and meet the patients and bring them in, talk to them, set them down, and then when a patient has a concern, sit there right with the staff and help them to solve it right in front of them. And lead that effort rather than like I'm sit back in the background and tell them what to do, and I went through many managers before I found someone who could manage when I first started to expand. And the managers would sit upstairs and they'd come up there and they'd say, "We have a problem. This patient doesn't want to pay his bill." "Oh, you tell them to pay their bill." "Okay, thank you." And they go downstairs and pay your bill,
Yeah.
And, for that, I say, "Why don't you want to pay your bill?" "Well, I didn't like my service," or, they didn't give me, or I had to go home without getting treated, or, they wouldn't, and so I think that in leadership in Vietnam, and I see this a lot with you, because you travel a lot. You always going from service center to service center. And I have the privilege of being able to travel throughout Vietnam by motorcycle. So I'm always in Da Nang and I'm sometimes in Hanoi and I'm often going into your place. And if you're there, you're there. You'll come down, you'll meet the customers, you'll talk to them. And if somebody's buying something, you'll tell them something, you'll kind of lead by example. And then when you lead, that carries through later on.
Yeah. I think, one of the key leadership principles is people do what people see, and, you show them the way, not just tell them the way. And that works.
Maybe that's more important in Southeast Asia than America. It's probably important in America as well. But here, my gosh, very few people want to not do as good a job as the boss.
Yeah.
But if the boss is not really there, they'll try and do the best the way they think they should do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Now you're working on insoles, some orthotic support that I know you've done at American Chiropractic Clinic, but now you're outside of that, moving on. I went into the pharmacy and there's your picture and, some orthotics. Tell us about that.
So, So, I guess, the concept of flat feet, the Asian flat foot is a syndrome that's very poorly understood in the West. In fact, all the literature in the West is wrong about it. They say you should treat it when they're 6 years old. If it's not better, by the time they're 6, it's actually too late. And in the last 30 years, I started treating flat feet in Malaysia to start with, and I hired podiatrists, and I assessed a lot of children, and I treated a tremendous number of patients. I found out very early on that if we started about 2 years old, and by about 6 or 7, we usually cured the problem. And there were certain aspects to the how we made the orthotic that helped. And eventually, we started making them through digital milling, and so we would buy a machine that would measure the foot with pins, and then we would cut the orthosis through a digital milling machine and then put it in the shoe. And the great thing was our success rate is incredibly high. I would say about 98% of the patients we treat have tremendous success with what we do, and often we can cure the problem completely. The downside is it's expensive and tedious and very hard to train. And so we were on a trip to Kilimanjaro with some of the business leaders of Vietnam, some of the top business owners of Vietnam, and we were climbing Kilimanjaro. And my partners at the time, they said, Wade, could you come up with a way to do this that would be less expensive and much more widely available? And so that led to many, many years of trying to develop an orthosis that would be self-molding, that would actually measure the foot and mold to it at the same time. And it's a very long story how that works, but gradually I got it. I've patented it in almost every country, in more than 100 countries in the world now. And I've partnered with a company called Beatus to start making the device. And we're just right on the cusp of trying to introduce it into the market in a larger way. We're putting them in the market now. We're every week we're selling them. But now I'm looking at how to create a system of distribution where we have a super high success rate, but at the same time we can, send out to more masses of people. And so that's what I'm working on now. It's very challenging, actually.
Yeah, that's really good. I have, that's part of my life too, because my son's got slightly flat feet also. And so, we've gone to putting him in orthotics and working on that. And it's kind of interesting because when I watched, your team go through it, and occasionally he'd be tripping, and I'm like, I told my wife, hey, those shoes aren't good. Like, I think it's the shoes. But then when you put him through on the treadmill with the camera, you could literally see his flat foot was causing his knee literally to dive in to the other leg. And so it was like, wow, okay, this is an issue then. And, your team's getting him on the right path now, which is great.
Yeah. Well, it's not my team anymore, but
but I mean, what your team did, and now it's on the right path. What's one belief about health or healing that you think most people get wrong?
Well, I think we're ever evolving into people who see health as being something that comes from the outside of the body. And I think that the way, especially in America, I think Vietnam's even better than America. America, we're screwed. I mean, we're just screwed because people eat in such a way, and they have a lot of stress, and the body is rapidly deteriorating. So by the time they're 30 or 40, they already are on several prescription medications. They're already having some pretty serious problems. And they look at a doctor, and these constant checks of their body, like these, taking blood work and titrating with medicines to try and compensate for this horrible lifestyle and this bad way of eating. And there's really a lack of faith in the body's own ability to assess itself and to fix itself. And so I just can't believe how often people are getting blood work done and how often they're reacting to changes in these biomarkers. And we don't even really know. I mean, it's really lucrative. Anti-aging and all this stuff is coming on, and this like kind of futuristic medicine is very lucrative. It's very compelling. And up till now, it doesn't seem to be very effective. Unless, it might be effective on top of having a good lifestyle, but for the normal person eating sugar and not exercising enough, having a lot of stress and a lot of negativity in their life, and trying to compensate by taking blood tests and titrating medicines or even supplements, it's a very poorly effective system. So I say the number one people forget is that the body is a self-healing, self-perpetuating organism, and we have an improved lifespan by giving people drugs or surgeries or stuff. We can definitely treat certain things. But we're not improving the overall well-being of people or their how long they live at all by what we're doing as far as medicines. We're just compensating for, if you take a person and you put them on a really good diet and they exercise and they have a fairly positive attitude, their chance of living up into their 80s or 90s is much higher. It's at least as high as anybody who's going to the doctor all the time, getting checked all the time. So
I think medicine is just masking the cause.
Yeah.
And, everybody just gets hooked to that, and everybody wants the easy way. It's the easy way. And I think there's no doubt that it's, what you put in your body, and then you're getting the results from that. Yeah.
And it also goes into we want to be proactive. Most people want to do something to prevent a problem. Like you take your car and you want to get it checked all the time, and you want to get your brakes adjusted and things like that. Like a motorcycle, always bringing in for its maintenance check. And people want to go to the doctor all the time and get a blood test, make sure they're okay. And it's not all wrong, but very often they're reacting to a moment in time. A blood test and a blood pressure measurement, a moment in time. And they're reacting to that in a very visceral way and changing lifestyle, maybe even taking medicines for that, when in fact, probably if they just change their diet a little bit, learned how to relax a little bit, everything would probably move much more towards normal without having to have this, compensatory titrated reaction where they give you medicine, they check again, they give you medicine, they check again. Man, once you start that cycle, you're done.
Yeah. What's one thing that someone can do to really improve their health? Just the simplest first thing that you think they should do?
I think probably the simplest thing a person can do that would make the biggest difference in this day and age would be reduce the amount of time you have insulin in your system. Because basically, maybe narrow your eating window, reduce how much simple carbohydrates you eat, and just have more longer periods of time where you don't have food in your system so that your insulin level drops. Because insulin, hyperinsulinemia, and there's two hormones that are killing everybody. One is insulin and one is cortisol. And no matter what you do different, if your insulin levels are high all the time, you're going to have higher blood pressure. You're going to produce worse, blood fats, like triglycerides and LDLs. That's all going to go haywire as long as you have high insulin levels. And you only have high insulin levels if you have high, blood sugar levels. And so that's the one. And the other is the reduced cortisol, which is just basically the stress hormone.
Stress, yeah.
But I would say one thing would be reduce insulin, just basically understand that. And people don't understand. They think food in, calories out. It's not that at all, or I'm eating better food now on top of the crap I'm eating. The most fundamental thing that's killing everybody in America is that their insulin, they have sugar in their blood system all the time, and therefore insulin in their blood system all the time. And all their blood vessels, all the cells of their body are becoming more and more insulin resistant, and their bodies have to produce more and more insulin, and pretty soon they become type 2 diabetic. They start having to take medicines to make the insulin work better, and you have to start injecting more insulin in because the body can't use it, and it's just a downward spiral.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to fix.
And it's pretty amazing how almost every single disease, one way or another, related to sugar. It is pretty amazing.
Yeah, but it's not sugar. See, that's the thing.
Okay.
Everybody's like, oh, it's sugar, it's sugar, it's sugar. It's not sugar, it's insulin. Okay. So sugar stimulates the production of insulin. So you can eat sugar. You can eat quite a bit of sugar if you only ate it in a narrow window of time. It's probably not as good as not eating sugar at all.
Yeah.
You can eat pretty bad food, and you can reduce the window of what you eat in, so you have a time where your body has to start burning its own fat and has no blood sugar and has no insulin in there. And during that time, then your body makes repairs. Your body reduces tumors during times of low insulin.
Yeah.
And when you're in ketosis, your body takes away fat because it burns fat as fuel. Your body produces more serotonin, more dopamine, and these type of things during periods of intermittent fasting. And so it's not sugar that's evil; it's the insulin all the time. Without insulin, you die.
Yeah.
Too much insulin, you also get sick and die.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
And cortisol is the same. I mean, you need a little pump of cortisol in the morning, and you need cortisol several times during the day, and you need it when you're getting ready to run away from a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
But you don't need cortisol in your system all the time. And if you do, insulin is what we call anti-lipolytic. Insulin stops the breakdown of fat. So if you take a little bit of sugar all day long, you don't lose weight. Your body can't break the fat. What it does is slows the metabolism, so you feel very lethargic. Cortisol is also anti-lipolytic. Those two hormones stop the breakdown of fat. And so as long as you have insulin in your system all the time, you're never going to break fat, no matter how much you diet. You can just reduce calories. Your body will just keep slowing down.
What causes the biggest insulin spikes? Is it just different for everybody, or is it, just processed sugar versus maybe fruit, or is there anything correlating with that?
Yeah, that's very well documented. I mean, the closer you go back to nature, the better you are. So like say you just eat fruit, like papayas and bananas, stuff like that. If you're eating those, during your eating window, and you're having some periods where you're not eating too much, it's very hard to have too much sugar from that. Now, the moment you dry a fruit and concentrate it, it becomes a little bit more glycemic. The moment you make it into a juice like orange juice, it becomes much more glycemic. The moment you use, cane sugar or sweet sugar beet sugar, which is a combination of fructose and glucose. When you have like those type of sugars like sucrose, then they're really rapidly allowed in the body, and they make the insulin go way, way up, and your body thinks you've eaten 50 potatoes, and so it secretes way too much insulin. Now, then we get into the very worst thing in the world is high fructose corn syrup, denatured corn syrup, because corn syrup, and many people don't even know this, but corn syrup fructose cannot be processed or affected by insulin. Fructose has to be processed first in the liver and made into, it's made into a glycerol molecule and then a glucose molecule, right? So fructose is really bad because it makes the liver work really hard, and the liver starts to become fatty, and it starts to become insulin resistant before the rest of the body becomes insulin resistant. And so then, fructose is the kiss of death. Okay. And in America, we subsidize corn farmers, we subsidize fructose production, and fructose is just, embedded in our food. I mean, if it wasn't done on purpose, it's the most effective way to make our healthcare system lucrative there is.
Okay. So eating raw just fruit is better than way better than juicing it, or
certainly,
yeah, because it's concentrates just
and juicing is still better than like a soft drink with fructose added.
Correct. Yeah.
And then if you were to in America, what we see all the time is people are are buying these big gulps. My brother died at 62, and he was he drank 3 of those a day. He'd go and he'd fill up one of those and just sip it all day long, which meant he had high fructose corn syrup going into his system all day long. It was like, let's see how I can make myself as sick as possible.
Yeah,
that would be a good,
that's a good way to
very
do it.
good method. Yeah, and many people do that. They get through their day by sipping fructose drinks or things like that. It's horrible.
Yeah. And the diet's even worse. I think the diet sodas and stuff have a whole nother different element to them.
That's right. Yeah. That was very hard to understand. So like clear back, I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote that, the Sugar Blues, but I remember when diet sweeteners, these like no calorie sweeteners first came in. I remember my father said that's going to be bad. That's going to cause cancer or something. That can't be good, And a lot of people had this feeling, like a sense that it was not going to be good. And it was many years before they figured out why it wasn't good. And they see that people that went on Diet Cokes would get fatter. Well, that doesn't make any sense, And I remember talking to doctors that argue with me. No, you should drink Diet Coke because there's no calories. There's no sugar in that. And then they found out, I don't know how many, it wasn't that long ago, they found out about what they called the cephalic insulin response. So, and they found out with actually sugar. They put a little bit of sugar under somebody's tongue, and immediately the person would have all these reactions in their body. They go, well, how's that possible? Because it hadn't gotten in the bloodstream yet. And you could put sugar under somebody's tongue, and within seconds, their bodies would kind of weaken. There'd be this systemic response, and the blood insulin would just spike. And then somebody says, hey, let's try that with like Steva. Let's try that with, what was that first one that came out? Aspartame. Let's try the aspartame. Immediately spiked. So now you have high insulin, and you have no sugar to go in through the cell. So what happens then? Your liver goes into insulin production. To sugar production. Insulin makes proteins into sugars by a process called gluconeogenesis. And then the other thing that happens is you start getting hungry. Your body says, I'm hungry. I don't have any sugar. I have insulin. I need food. And so insulin, of course, stimulates appetite, And so the worst thing you can do is take a diet drink because it makes you hungry. And then what do? You eat something, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And you want something that's very glycemic. You want potato chips, or you want some chocolate, or something that has sugar in it, or really accessible carbohydrates in it, because that's what you need to take up that insulin.
Yeah. I worked with a guy years ago that constantly drank Diet Cokes. I mean, this guy was, drinking a 6-pack of Diet Cokes easy during the work hours, right? And man, that guy would be on a mental roller coaster all the time. Like one minute he's, losing his marbles, and we're like, man, is this guy bipolar or what's the deal? And he's probably just hangry. It's like, his body's telling him he needs to eat, and he's just filling it with Diet Coke.
So, I grew up, working on a cattle ranch, and I grew up in Idaho, and we had these big meals, and we'd have these huge breakfasts. I remember feeling like just, we'd have like, bacon, eggs, sausage, hash browns, flapjacks, and maple syrup, and then a big glass of orange juice. And, of course, we were working hard, so we weren't fat then. But I can remember after breakfast going, ooh, have this kind of like weird rush, and then we'd work real hard. And then I remember being at lunchtime, just being absolutely ravished hungry. And I just couldn't, and then try to stuff in enough food to get through the rest of the day. And then dinner, eating this huge meal. And kids that were in high school and were active and were busy, we were all thin. But you could see all the parents getting fatter. Like when I was a kid, all the parents were kind of getting chubby. But we didn't have obese people then. But we were getting bigger. Yeah. And I remember when I started eating differently, I experimented with many different diets. Every time when the Atkins diet came, I tried that. When the slow carb diet by Tim Ferriss came, I really delved into that for a while. And then the keto diet and the ketogenic diet. And then now I've done a tremendous amount of self-research with fasting, kind of moderate fast, 3-day fast at the most, and intermittent fasting, meaning having a window of time, and then having certain days where you cheat, or certain periods of the year where you cheat a little bit. And boy, I tell you now, I cannot eat for 2 days, and I have no problem. Yeah. Now that my body's kind of fat adapted, or my metabolism is versatile, I'll go like sometimes 2 or 3 days, very little suffering, very moderated energy levels. I would never have thought that was possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, when I've done some intermittent fasting also, once you reach some point, then you're not hungry. You're right. It's like, okay, this is strange. It's like, okay, I would thought I would have been super, super hungry. And then your body starts regulating, and
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. The body is so amazing on how
adaptable.
everything it does. Yeah, it is pretty awesome. Now you've seen all sorts of patients from extreme poor people, rich people. What's one of the most human things you've learned about people through their pain?
Wow, what have I learned about people through their pain? Well, what I've learned is that as far as like how pain affects people in their entire lifetime, people are hardwired against pain, which is maybe the reason why diets don't work. And usually when people exercise too hard, they unless they have some people need to really train hard to have pain to kind of compensate for something that's going on in their life. But those people are rare.
Yeah.
We have some friends who are like that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not like that. So I think that when people have pain, people are just they're when I studied NLP, when we studied with Bandler and Grinder, and we were doing the NLP movement was big. We were doing the NLP study, and I remember John Grinder saying people are hardwired against pain. He says pain is the one thing that people will avoid at all cost. And so with the type of pain that I deal with, chronic pain, it drives people insane because they can't get away from it. Like if you break your leg, it's going to come to an end. It's going to get better, right? If you have an appendicitis and you're in horrible pain for a while, maybe you can't take it, they're going to take it out. Chronic pain, it drives people insane because people just are hardwired against it, and they need to get away from it. Nobody really gets to the point where they say, okay, I can live with it, I can deal with it. I don't know anybody that's ever gotten like that, and I think with achievement in life, driving yourself with pain is also, like whether emotional pain or whooping yourself or whooping other people into doing stuff. It's very counterproductive. I think that people respond much better to a positive stimulation than they do to a negative one.
Yeah.
But I mean, pain is a very great driver if you want to stop somebody from doing something.
Sure.
But I think people are really hardwired against pain. They won't push themselves into pain very easily. And so I think that's the whether they're rich, whether they're poor, really rich people often struggle with physiology and health. Really poor people sometimes struggle with health.
Yeah, that's right.
But everybody really, very few people push themselves through a lot of pain,
Yeah. What's the beatings will continue until the morale gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. Yeah, the aspect of, dealing with pain and then, being able to really be the best you can be, it's really hard to do. In what I try to do with this channel is really try to help people unlock the potential they have, right? And sometimes one of the main reasons I wanted you on here is because, people can't live to their potential because they're dealing with pain, and it really holds people back.
For sure.
For sure. Now that you're out of the, big business and, you're traveling, you're doing some things you're in, what's one legacy piece that you really want people to remember of what you did and brought to Vietnam?
So I used to want people to remember that I brought chiropractic to Vietnam, but I've kind of given up on that because chiropractic has its own issues. I hope it survives.
Mm-hmm.
When I leave the fight, I'm not sure it will. I'm not sure that the other chiropractors have enough drive to fight it.
You got to hold the standard, and that's one of the things you've done so well at ACC is held a standard to care. And you're right. And most of the time, when that leaves, then the standard goes away. And yeah, I mean, now they have PTs doing cracking people's backs and stuff. It's like, wow, okay, well, you're just supposed to teach someone how to do the gym. Now you're adjusting their neck, and that's gonna, is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So I think that like as far as like a legacy for Vietnam or a global legacy, I don't think that I did anything big enough for that. I think the biggest legacy we have at ACC is that in a period of 20 years, I was able to influence a number of people in a very positive way. I mean, I was part of a person's life journey where they went from here to here, and maybe it changed everything. You know, for example, there were a number of girls that came off the Mekong Delta that were like 17, 18, 19 and started working for me in the early years. And there's a group of about 18 or maybe 20 of them who I'm still in very close contact with. My wife and I are. And about a couple months ago, they had a big dinner for us, and probably 25, 30 people came to this dinner, and they're all people who we had met and known for like 15 years. And they would say without exception, gosh, it just changed my life to come and work for you and to see somebody doing something for the right reason. Actually, after being in ACC for a while, we knew that you were here on a mission to help people.
Yeah, that's right.
To help us, to train us, to do a great job, and to help the patients came in. And they said, that just changed my entire perspective of life. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
And many of them was like, my first job ever. It was my best place I ever worked, you know?
Yeah, that's
And so that's something of a legacy, I guess.
Yeah,
You know, it's
that's
not like a legacy that affected the whole country, but I think we affected some, not everybody, but there's some people who really are different for having, worked in my company.
Yeah, that's really good.
I think so.
I know so. Yeah, it's awesome to be able to do that. And, people will rally around a vision or a cause, and they'll run through a brick wall for you for that. And I think that's what you've done.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of these people that you're talking about because as a customer there at ACC, but then I've been with you enough outside of work to see that. And, I remember back to maybe 4 years ago or so, I was in Da Nang, you were in Da Nang at the same time. Hey, let's meet for dinner. We go to the restaurant, and the lady there, and she, and that lady came up, you changed my life. You really made a difference with me. So, no, I think you've done really a lot of positive stuff.
Yeah. And I think the same here. I think with your guys is some people that even don't work for you anymore, I'll run into them from time to time. They'll look at like their time with Harley Davidson, their time with Triumph or Royal Enfield when you had that as being like the real peak of the good old days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's something. That's really something.
For sure. Okay. 30 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
you have your daughter or maybe your grandkids at that time, they find this video. And they see, okay, there's Grandpa Wade or whatever at this point, or someone that really care about. What can you tell them that, how they could maybe unlock the potential they have in themselves? Give them some advice.
So I think that I'm struggling with this now because now I don't need to do anything. I'm as successful materially as I need to be. I don't really have any aspiration to have anything more than I have. And so now I'm looking, what should I do with my life now? So I would say it's kind of twofold. One is figure out what it is you really want to do, regardless of how practical it is, and then make sure that you have substance. So many people who do chiropractic or do medicine or something, they don't have substance. It's a technique. It's a technique to bond with people or a technique to sell something. But actually, when I meet people, I can tell if they really believe in me, when they come in, and often I'm looking at somebody across the table and I can tell they're really worried about their situation. And I can actually feel when they buy in and they say, oh, this guy actually wants me to be better, which I do. Mm-hmm. I actually, more than anything else, I would treat him for free if I could just get him better, Yeah. And so there's substance to what I want. And I think that the moment you make it a technique, like you figure out how to lubricate the process with all these methodologies of closing and selling and explaining and getting people to believe in you by technique, I think you lose everything. So I think that authenticity, like having a great purpose and being authentic in it. When I talk to you, when I'm doing something on a motorcycle, which, like I had that big wreck up in Hanoi,
yeah.
And I remember calling you up and your only concern was how to help me get through that situation, and then when I went to your dealership, the main concern was like, okay, how can we fix this bike quickly for you so you can continue to use it? Here's a way to fix the box where you don't have to buy a new one. I just got a word today. And he sent me a message. I can't remember what is it? I can't remember which one, but from Hanoi. He just sent me a message on Zalo and he said, I got a guy, he's a machinist, and he fixed your bike for 1/10. He fixed the box with a TIG welder and all this stuff. And I just saved a bunch of money for you. And you want the original bolts, so I can put these other ones in, they're less expensive, and here's the advantage. I was like, that's substance. That means that you're actually doing something for the right reason. You make your living as a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
And whether it's selling motorcycles or providing healthcare, whatever it is, if you're doing it because you genuinely have an ethic and a mission behind that, there's no faking that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would say, find out what you really want to do without limits. And when you do something, do it because it's who you are and a mission behind it, and have the real substance behind it. Don't just learn techniques for making something happen how you want them to happen,
Yeah. No, that's awesome advice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's great. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Wade, for coming in and joining us today. I appreciate it a lot.
You're sure welcome.
Yeah, I think that for sure what you talked about today will help somebody. So I'm proud.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. Gosh, it's been great having you here in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Me and quite a few other people, Al Morgan and quite a few other motorcyclists.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because you're here, our life is a lot better. Can you believe that? I mean, because driving a motorcycle in Vietnam is a huge part of what I love to do.
Yeah.
And because you came here and because you run this company the way you do, my life is significantly better.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's crazy, huh? But it's true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you help me with pain, and I help you with pleasure. So there you go.
There we go.
All right, Wade. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you. You bet. That was Dr. Wade Brackenbury sharing some wisdom from a lifetime of healing. Now, if this conversation helped you see pain or recovery in a new light, share it with someone who needs it, and check the show notes for links to Dr. Wade's videos and work. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, keep growing, keep moving, and keep unlocking the potential of yourself and the people you lead and love.